So, okay, what was the guy's name who owned
The house?
who sold the Trent Reznor?
Rudy Altobelli.
Rudy, and he's
I can tell you an interesting story about him that just happened recently. So Quentin Tarantino released his movie, a few months after my book came out, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And I think it was his most successful movie box office-wise to date. And I had two mutual friends of his, and one of them is one of his producers and his longtime first AD, and the other one was an ex-girlfriend who's one of his only ex-girlfriends who remained friends with him. Mm-hmm. So both of them gave him a copy of my book, an advance copy that I had signed months before my book came out and months before his movie came out. And they said, we're not going to give it to him unless we read it first. We know you, we love you, but we want to make sure it's something that he'd like, because everybody wants you to give something to Quentin.
Right.
So they did, and he never read it, and I wasn't surprised because he's about to release one of the biggest movies of his career.
Right.
A lot of publicity. So about a year after, like last fall, I think it was, I got a call from one of our mutual friends, and he said, "Can Quentin call you now?" I'm like, "Excuse me, I needed him like 2 years ago, but sure." I go, "Why?" He goes, "He's obsessed with your book. He finally got to read the one I gave him, and he has a million questions." And if Quentin Tarantino has a million questions, that means it's like blah 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 blah. So he called me from Israel, where he was living, and
in Israel.
Well, I just read an interview with him a couple days ago. I knew he was there, and I didn't know why. I knew he had married an Israeli woman and had a baby there, but when the pandemic hit, they wouldn't let him back in. So he got, I guess.
Hopefully he's not still there now.
He was on Jimmy Kimmel a couple nights ago.
Oh, okay.
But he was there during a lot of that, and the interview I read said, I think he was in Tel Aviv. He didn't say anything about, bombings, violence, or anything. He just said how much he loved it there.
Yeah.
So he and his wife and kid have now moved back, I think, in the last month or two. But so he started calling me, and it wasn't just because he had a million questions, but it was because he was doing the novelization of the movie, where he's fleshing out characters, adding scenes, and he'd always wanted to write a paperback book, kind of like a pulpy paperback book. So that comes out Tuesday, and he, talking about Rudy Altobelli, and like our second or third conversation, like, "And Rudy, how did you ever get Rudy to talk to you? That's amazing." He goes, "Damn it, I've got his character in the book. I didn't have him in the movie, but I have to, fake his name, or." He goes, "Or do you think if you reached out to Rudy and asked, would he take like $250,000 from me to let me use his name in the book? And promise not to sue me?" I go, "Quentin, Rudy's been dead for 10 years. He's like, "Are you kidding me? You just saved me $250,000. And, I'm still in debt, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
And I'm like, Quentin, give it to me. Or I should have said, give me the cash and I'll deliver it to Rudy for you.
Oh, yeah, you definitely should have done that.
So the book comes out Tuesday, and I'm hoping...
You know the name of it?
It's the same name as it's the title of the movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think he was on Jimmy Kimmel a night or two ago, and I was flying, so I didn't see it, but I read the recap of the interview. But I'm hoping, for the in-depth interviews, if he was telling me the truth, he said, "Oh my God," he goes, "I thought I knew this, and I didn't know anything about this character or that character." I'm hoping he'll mention the book, because all the Quentin fans then might be interested and get the book.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll know.
Fascinating.
But it's already going. It's going to be a bestseller because it's a Quentin Tarantino book. It's the first one he's ever written, and he keeps saying, "I didn't just turn the novel into a script." He goes, "It's like a whole fresh take, new characters, much more about the Manson family, the murders, all this stuff."
Because there was literally barely anything about Manson in the movie.
Yeah. He released a trailer. The publisher released a trailer last week that he put together for the book. So it's like a 2-minute trailer, and he has scenes in the trailer that are in the book, but they were cut from the movie. So there is a scene between the Manson character at the house looking for Terry Melcher, and they don't show who he's talking to, but in real life, it would have been Rudy Altobelli. So the guy who owned the house. He went up there looking for him. So I'll know a lot when the book comes out Tuesday. I hope he gives me an acknowledgement if I saved him $250,000.
Oh, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely need to put your name in there. Shout you out somewhere.
Yeah.
Fucking Quentin. So Rudy, so when you talked to Rudy, I mean, that, what was it about Rudy that opened, what did he tell you that opened Pandora's box for you?
It began very slowly. He started telling me that he had suffered more than anybody else who was associated with the victims, Sharon and Wojciech Rakowski, Abigail. You know, they were all his friends too. He lived in the house behind the main house. So Rudy owned this beautiful property at the top of Cielo Drive. It was like a French-designed country house, one story with like beautiful views everywhere. There was a pool, and then there was a guest house. So he lived in the guest house, bought the house, I think, in the 40s. And among the tenants who stayed there were Katharine Hepburn, Clark Gable, Cary Grant, and then Terry Melcher, who's the son of Doris Day. He was a music producer. He moved in there in 65, moved out in January of 69, and they all rented from Rudy, and Rudy always stayed in the back house because that's all he needed. But he only rented to people he thought he'd party with. He was a huge partier.
Yeah.
He was one of the first out gay guys in Hollywood who flamboyant, didn't care what people thought, real character. And when Roman and Sharon moved in, he and Sharon became very, very close, Sharon Tate. So they moved in February of 69. And then in March, the two of them went to Europe, him to do script notes and fixing on The Day of the Dolphin, which he was going to direct in London, and Sharon went to make a devil movie called The 13 Chairs in Italy. And then they came back. Sharon came back in July, and Rudy never came back. He went over with Sharon. He flew over there. He wasn't her manager. He was just her best friend, so they flew together, and then he went off with an actress named Olivia Hussey, who was in Romeo and Juliet, which was this big sensational 1969 movie. So his relationship with Roman and Sharon and Terry Melcher was really important to what became the line of inquiry I was doing. Did people in Hollywood have relationships with Manson that were concealed by either Hollywood, the machine, the publicity machine, or law enforcement? And Rudy started kind of telling me, yeah. So he'd get drunk. I'd usually drive him home, and he'd always want me to come into his shitty little apartment for one more nightcap. And that's when he'd start talking. And he'd had a few drinks, and he goes, you know what? Terry went on. He had a great career, produced all these bands. He was still alive then. Roman's never suffered for this. He goes, the only one who lost their house, lost their reputation, because people thought he had a relationship with the family. You know, even law enforcement, they eventually said he didn't, but a relationship with the Manson family, that was another reason for them to come up there. He was just bitter and angry, and he said if the truth ever came out about Roman and them and Terry and Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys and some other people, he goes, nobody would believe it, but it's true, and I could tell you. And so he started telling me how to prove that the district attorney, Bugliosi, had covered up the much more involved relationship with Terry Melcher, for instance, and then government people who were involved with Manson. And it's hard to say if people haven't read the book, and I don't want to give too much away, because part of the fun of the book is you think it's gotten pretty crazy and it's over, and then like the next couple of pages it's like, no, what? It's even crazier.